You ever sit at a family table and wonder if your seat was just decoration? That's how it felt. Every birthday, every holiday dinner, they'd beam at my brother like he was the future of humanity. Then look at me like I'd wandered in from the street. I didn't ask to be praised. But maybe once, I just wanted to be seen. My name's Rowan Hale. And if you like revenge stories where the quiet one finally speaks, stay with me, because this one burns slow and ends with a fire no one saw coming. The restaurant smelled like butter and money, one of those Italian places with gold chandeliers and waiters who memorize your name but still judge your shoes. I showed up 10 minutes early. Rookie move. They were already there. My parents, my brother Colin, his new girlfriend, different from last month, and my Aunt Teresa, who once asked if I still worked with trees or tents or whatever. Mum waved when she saw me, not with joy, but like she was flagging down a bus. "Rowan, sweetheart, you can sit at the far end, next to the breadbasket." I walked past Colin, who didn't even look up from his phone. I took the seat. The chair wobbled. 10 minutes in, Dad launched into a glowing report about Colin's recent appointment as Assistant Chief Resident at Houston General. "You know," he said, beaming, "when Colin walks into a room, people notice." I smiled. Not tight, just practiced. No one asked what I'd been up to. Colin's girlfriend leaned over, voice sweet with curiosity. "So, Rowan, what do you do again? Something with campfires, right?" I took a sip of water before answering. "I run survival workshops, fire evacuation, wilderness prep, first aid, mostly for teenagers and school staff." She blinked. "Oh, so like how to pitch a tent." The table chuckled. Gently, politely. It still stung. They didn't know about Bridger. They didn't know about the man I dragged out of a burning house with third-degree burns on my arms. They didn't ask why I never wore sleeveless shirts anymore, why I flinched when the fire alarm went off in a building, because in their eyes, I'd failed. I didn't have a stethoscope. I didn't marry a lawyer. I didn't give them a LinkedIn bio to brag about at cocktail parties. Colin got a 2-tier cake that night. Frosted in white, stethoscope made of fondant. Mom leaned over during dessert, her voice careful. "Don't say anything big tonight, okay? This is Colin's moment. Let's keep things comfortable." I looked at the flickering candles, and I swallowed the lump in my throat. After dinner, I walked alone to my car. No hugs, no drive safe, just silence. So familiar, it almost felt like family. What they didn't know was, I had a story too, one they'd buried under Colin's medals and my own silence. But it was still burning, right beneath the surface. And the night they'd finally hear it wouldn't be over, Pastor. It'd be when someone else stood up and said, "You know that woman you all ignore? She once saved my life." There's a silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from knowing no one's going to ask. After dinner that night, I drove home in the dark. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't need music to fill the emptiness. I'd been raised with that sound. Silence between questions they never asked. Silence between all the versions of me they never wanted to hear about. They talked about Colin's grant proposals and new hospital title. No one ever said, "Rowan, tell us something about your world." But I remember mine. Bridger, Montana. The air was thick with smoke. The cabin was already crumbling when I crawled inside. 8 people trapped. Flames like wild animals licking the walls. I remember dragging the last man out by the collar. His pulse was weak. I didn't know his name. I just knew he was someone's father, brother, maybe husband. My gear was melting on me. The oxygen tank beeped a warning. I kept whispering through my mask, "Stay awake. Stay with me." That's the last thing I remember. They told me later I collapsed 2 feet from the exit. They pulled me out just before the floor caved in. I woke up 3 days later in a burn unit. 3rd-degree burns on my shoulder and left wrist, lungs scorched from smoke. I couldn't hold a spoon. I couldn't sleep without flinching, and not once did my parents call. I got a message from Colin. "Glad you're okay. Let us know when you're back in town." Back in town, I'd just had skin grafts. I couldn't lift my own body weight, and he texted like I'd been on vacation. You ever go through something life-changing, and the people who should care most treat it like background noise? If that's ever happened to you, yeah, I'm listening. Drop it in the comments, because I can't be the only one wondering how love can be so selective. Anyway, I left the department 11 months later, quietly. No retirement party, no send-off. I mailed my badge from a UPS store in Austin. I didn't go to the medal ceremony. Didn't even cash the $300,000 grant the state sent me. It's still in a sealed envelope inside a fireproof lockbox in my nightstand. Sometimes I open the drawer. I look at the old newspaper clipping, me on the front page, face smeared with ash, eyes wide and alive. Then I close it again. Because in my family, you don't talk about fire. You just pretend nothing ever burned. I wasn't even on the official guest list. Colin had called a week before, his voice stiff, like he was checking something off a to-do list. The hospital's hosting this gala. First responders, medical heroes, that kind of thing. Might be good for you to, I don't know, show your face? You work with emergency stuff too, right? I wanted to laugh. Emergency stuff. That's what they called it now, like dragging people out of burning buildings was a hobby. Still, I said I'd think about it. And somehow, on the night of the event, I found myself standing in front of my closet, staring at the one thing I hadn't touched in years. My old fire jacket. The one that still faintly smelled like smoke. The one I nearly died in. I didn't wear it. But I didn't wear anything glittery either. Just a black dress, clean lines, minimal makeup, hair tied back. I didn't want attention. I just didn't want to vanish anymore. The ballroom was all soft lights and champagne flutes. Strings played something classical. Name tags glittered on lapels. I hovered near the back wall, by the water station, out of sight. I wasn't here for fanfare. Just curiosity, maybe. Colin was front and centre, laughing loud, arm around our father, shaking hands with donors like a senator mid-campaign. My mother caught my eye from across the room. She gave me a tight-lipped smile and mouthed, "Stay out of the way." I nodded, old reflex, and then it happened. A man walked by, mid-50s, silver hair, confident but not flashy. He paused, turned back, eyes narrowing. He studied me like he was looking through time. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Are you Rowan Hale?" I froze. "Yes." "Bridge of Fire, 2017. You pulled me out." The air dropped out of my lungs. He stepped closer. "I remember your eyes. You kept saying, 'Don't sleep, I've got you.' You were the last face I saw before blacking out." My throat closed. For years I'd carried that memory like a secret weight. And here it was, speaking back to me. The man reached out his hand. "Dr. Everett Shaw, I've been trying to find you ever since." A moment later, the speeches started. Dr. Shaw took the stage. He began with the usual notes, gratitude for medical teams, frontline exhaustion, but then he stopped mid-sentence and looked out over the crowd. "Tonight, I want to acknowledge a different kind of hero." He pointed straight at me. "Rowan Hale saved my life in 2017. She pulled me from a burning cabin and then disappeared. Never asked for credit, never even showed up to receive her award, but I remember, and I want you all to know." The room went still. Fork stopped, eyes turned, even Colin. She was awarded the state heroism grant, $300,000, and not once did she mention it, because that's not why she did it. I didn't move. I just nodded. For the first time in years, someone called my name, and it echoed. Not in a small room with fake applause, not in a family that used silence like salt, but in a room full of strangers, finally seeing me for who I was. And suddenly, I wasn't invisible anymore. But my parents? They looked at me like they had no idea who I'd been all along. And maybe they didn't. 3 days after the gala, my phone buzzed. Mum. Sweetheart, we're so proud of you. Bryce is coming home this weekend. We'd love to do a family dinner, just us. Sweetheart. I read that word twice. I hadn't heard it from her since middle school. Still, I said yes. Their house hadn't changed. Same ceramic angels by the window. Same dusty piano no one touched since I left for the academy. But this time there was a banner above the fireplace. Welcome home, our hero. The letters were red, fire engine red. In the kitchen, Mom stirred my favourite soup, mushroom and barley. Dad pulled out my old baby photo album. Colin was there too, smiling too much, sitting a little straighter than usual. Something was off. We sat down to eat. They asked questions this time, real ones. How's Austin? How are the kids in your program? Have you thought about speaking to the press? And for a moment, I let my guard down. Maybe this was it. Maybe I was finally being let back in. Then Mum leaned forward, hands folded just so. Rowan, you still have that money, right? From the award? I didn't answer right away. She continued, tone light, like this was a casual family thing. Colin's research proposal needs backing. It's important work for the community. We were thinking, just a portion, dear, something meaningful. Colin chimed in, like this was all rehearsed. Look, I get why you kept things private, totally, but now that it's out in the open, you don't have to carry it alone, right? Carry it alone? I looked around the table. The soup, the banner, the baby photos. This wasn't love. This was a campaign. I set my spoon down. You're right. I don't have to carry it alone, but I also don't owe it to anyone. Mum blinked like I'd just cursed in church. Colin looked away. I finished my bowl, smiled politely, and stood. Thanks for dinner. As I walked to my car, the banner fluttered in the wind behind me. Our hero. Not daughter, not family, just a title. Useful only when it meant something they could hold in their hands. A week of silence can feel like a truce until your name shows up on Reddit. The headline screamed, "My sister hoards 300K while our family suffers." No author, just concerned brother 98. The post painted me as a selfish ex-firefighter rolling in award money while Mom battled high blood pressure and Dad refinanced the house to fund my workshops. It had Colin's fingerprints all over it, right down to the photo of me collapsing outside the bridge of fire. A photo only family possessed. 2 hours later, the local paper picked it up. By evening, an Austin parenting blog posted, "Hero or Hoarder? The Rowan Hale controversy." The phones at my training centre wouldn't stop. Parents wanted refunds. School boards hit pause on contracts. My inbox filled with fire emojis and accusations. Greedy fraud. Fake hero. I called Colin. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Call me now." Bubbles popped up. Disappeared. Nothing. Then a private number rang. His voice was steady, almost bored. "Should have helped when I asked, Ro. Internet loves a villain." My pulse thudded. "You're killing my livelihood." "Relax," he sighed. "News cycles move fast. Cash me a slice, I delete the post. Simple." I pictured Mum stirring soup, Dad nodding along, all of them willing to sell my name again. That night my apartment window shattered, glass everywhere. The fireproof lockbox lay open, papers gone, no forced entry on the door. Lobby cameras later showed Colin letting a stranger in, badge swipe time-stamped 2:14 a.m. On my kitchen table, a note in thick marker, "Learn to share." It wasn't anger that hit me, it was a cold clarity. The same clarity you feel when a ceiling beam groans and you know the roof is about to come down. At dawn, I met Everett Shaw in a diner. His investigator slid a folder across the booth. Forged bank transfers, deleted Venmo logs, lobby footage, IP traces back to Colin's hospital computer, and emails from Dad coaching him on PR angles. Evidence, enough to burn every lie down to ash. As I signed the affidavit, my hand didn't shake. For 17 years, I'd run into fires to save strangers. Today, I was finally running out and leaving the people who pushed me into the flames behind. The courthouse was colder than I expected. No cameras, no entourage, just me, my binder of evidence, and the weight of 17 years of silence. Colin sat at the defendant's table, shoulders hunched. My parents behind him, stone-faced, dressed like grief. The prosecutor started with security footage, Colin unlocking the building at 2:14 a.m., then the emails, then the forged wire transfers, then the Reddit post draft, traced to his hospital laptop. The courtroom shifted, chairs creaked, someone gasped, even the judge's brow twitched. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. No tears, no speech rehearsed in the mirror. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want recognition. I want truth to mean something. I want to stop paying the emotional bill for people who never once picked up the check." I looked at my parents. They didn't meet my eyes. They weren't losing a daughter. They'd already thrown her away. Colin was fined. His medical license suspended. My parents faced IRS scrutiny for financial misrepresentation. No one went to prison. But everything cracked, and this time I didn't tape it back together. 2 months later, I reopened my training centre under a new name, the Ember Initiative. Because what survives fire isn't what resists the heat, it's what rises from it. Kids returned, some shy, some proud. A few parents even apologised. And one morning, a boy with a nervous smile handed me a hand-drawn badge. "You're my hero," he whispered. I didn't cry, but something in me softened, like a window opening after too many closed doors. That night, I got a letter from my parents. No apologies, just, "We understand now. You didn't need to be a doctor to make us proud." I folded it, placed it beside my old fire photo, the one where my face is streaked in ash, but my eyes are wide and alive. She had no idea how much she'd lose, or how much she'd rebuild. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've ever had to walk away just to breathe, drop a "still standing" in the comments. I'd love to know I'm not alone. Thank you for staying with me through this fire. See you in the next story.